Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of In the Prog Seat. It's Tuesday night. Thank you for joining us. We've got another cool album war today. This one comes to us from our center square, Mr. George Lemie and Stephen Reed. Silver Anniversary album war. Four albums that are celebrating 25 years, all from 1999. Very, very cool albums. We're going to get to that in a second. First, let me introduce the crew. He's back. He's been gone for a month? Mr. Louis Master is back. What's up,
Hello.
Louis?
How's everybody doing? Greetings from Mexico.
Good to see you, my friend. Eric Porter's in the house. Ken Golden's here. Like I said, our center square, George Lemie, is in the house. Chad Hutchinson and Anthony Ferrara, both from PA, are in the house. The Cans himself, Christian Canzaneri's here. And another of our four New Yorkers today, Mr. Chuck Alvarez. What's happening, Chuck?
Good evening, gentlemen.
The boroughs. We got two Hudson Valleyers. We got one Capital Region. We got one from the boroughs in New York City. We got two Twin Pillars from Chicago, one lone New Jerseyer today, and two from PA. That's pretty good. We're representing.
Not bad. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, George, I'm going to call on you to introduce the four albums, even though everybody has seen the thumbnail and know what they are. But I want George to kind of explain his thought process for kind of putting these four together. It's a really good four. And then we'll get started and we'll go around and have everybody. I have to keep track. I just totally forgot I have to keep score here. That's what we do with these. So, George, take it away while I write down my little scorecard.
Yeah, it seems like there's been a few of the year related shows lately, but they tend to be all on the 10s. So I thought about one that's not on the 10s, which would be a Silver Anniversary, 1999. And then to avoid personal bias, I went on Rate Your Music. And I got the four most owned prog-related titles on there. And that is these titles: Dream Theater, Scenes from a Memory, Liquid Tension Experiment 2, Opeth, Still Life, and Porcupine Tree, Stupid Dream.
There's Porcupine Tree. There's the Liquid Tension Experiment. Here's the Opeth. And here's the Dream Theater. So for all you folks who keep saying we want more newer bands, more newer albums, well, here you go. And for all you folks who don't listen to anything past 1985, play along anyway, and maybe you'll find some of these albums to love.
I do love that new is 25 years old.
Yeah, I was about to say that's not fucking new at all.
But to a lot of people, that's very new because again, some people just don't listen to anything past a certain point in time. So for a lot of people watching, this might be, these are like real modern records, even though you're right, 25 years ago. But to a lot of people could be new. So anyway, let's get started. Let's have Louis, since he's been gone for so long. We'll have you start us off, Louis. So go from your number 4, 3, 2, and 1, and I'll put everything down on my score sheet, and we'll see how we get going here.
All right. Before I start, though, I do want to say I've missed all these mugs. I had a great tour.
Welcome back, man.
Spent a month in Chile and Argentina. And for anybody who doubts, I encountered a lot of great people I didn't know who knew me because they watched this show. Some of them came to the shows and they brought their family. Some of them have written, about us. There's two people in particular I just want to give a shout out quickly to because they were really cool. One is Danilo. Si estás viendo, Danilo, saludos. And the other one is a polyglot called Thomas Chimay. That dude is awesome. He runs a prog rogue thing and he's just a great guy. So I just wanted to acknowledge these guys are longtime viewers and many others whose names I don't know. But, Pete, whatever you may think you're doing, it's a lot wider and bigger than you know. Well, so that's a very cool thing.
It's always good to hear. And, I was at a toy, comic book, and collectibles fair yesterday, and I ran into three people who recognized me from the channel. Craig Kaminsky from Hudson Valley Squares and the Monsters Den messaged me the other day. He went to see Glenn Hughes the other night. He was running into SOT fans all evening. So yeah, for folks out there watching, we love that you watch and we love that you're loyal, and when we love talking to you when we run into you out there in the wild, wherever it may be. So it doesn't go unnoticed. We do appreciate it.
It's very moving when these guys suddenly show up. Like really, it's great. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And for you, because I know how hard you work, we all do. Not so much recently, but it's cool. So anyway,
I'm I'm struck that anyone would let Luis anywhere near their family. That's great.
You know, you would be surprised how careless people are in general. I gain access to things that nobody should give me access to habitually. Anyway, about the records though. So to me, this was the number one was a slam dunk. There was nothing to think about. So really the action is the others, right? How do you rank them? And in the end, for me, my number 4 is a Liquid Tension Experiment 2. That's look, all these records are fucking great. I own them all. I listen to them to death. I just find that the Liquid Tension Experiment is it's lacking after Acid Rain, which is just dynamite. Some of the songs are hit or miss as compared to Acid Rain, right? But it's a great record. And everybody plays, well, you don't need me to explain that. You know who they are, you know how they play. So, you know. But musically, yeah, it's not a record that I normally listen to anymore. So that's why that's at number 4. Now, the number 3 was tough because you know, both of the ones that are between 2 and 3 are albums that I love. But I think I'm gonna have to give it to Stupid Dream. It's a fantastic record. It's really one of the best Porcupine Tree albums. But it just, I don't know, for whatever reason, it hasn't aged that well for me. Again, that's another record that I don't really reach for. Although, in its defense, it's so well written that, unlike the Liquid Tension Experiment, that as soon as I hit the play, any one of the songs, I instantly recognize it. I know it's start to end. And that is a very good thing. As far as, you know, it's a great record. I believe it's also Chris Maitland's last record as a drummer. Any Tree scholars can correct me.
I thought he was on Light Bulb
Sun. Yeah, I think he's on.
Well, Light Bulb Sun is the last one. That's right. Okay.
He played Nearfest, and that was after Light Bulb Sun.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so fair enough. It's a great record, except for the title track, which doesn't make any sense. It's just like this little blur. I don't understand it. But other than that, it's a fine record. But I put that at 3. At number 2 comes Still Life by Opeth, and that is just a phenomenal record. I just love everything about it. It's not even the best Opeth record, but that's a record that I can still hear today and enjoy. Like if I hit play, I'm listening to the whole thing every time. And it's also a kind of a concept album, right? It has the whole story of the guy who was banished and comes back to the town, and he's looking for his lost love, Melinda. It's the whole Face of Melinda thing. And it's you know, it's not the greatest storyline, but it kind of works, you know. So it really does fit with the music. So I really, really, really love that album. It's they still have the twin Latin American rhythm section, you know, the Mendes and Lopez. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that drummer, who's now with Soen, was the best drummer Opeth ever had. That dude is maniac, tasteful, wonderful. So the music shines as a result. And of course, the number 1 could be nothing else than Dream Theater Scenes from Memory. That is their best album. That is the reference when it comes to prog metal at that time. That's it. That's the best thing they did. That is their 2112, right? I think we can say that. And that was a make or break thing, right? They had to do something, or they were basically done for their label. They delivered. And it's a record that, to me, I saw that tour live 2 or 3 times. It's perfect. That's my favorite Dream Theater album is that. And one of my favorite albums all time is that. So that was the easy number 1.
Cool. We're off to a good start. All right, Eric, let's move across to you.
All right. Well, I surprised myself. I think how you come up with a preconceived idea of where they're going to be, and that didn't happen, except for number 4. I can't listen to the vocals on Opeth. Sorry. I'd never heard that before. That was the only one of the four I haven't heard. And I like Opeth, but I had heard about them through Porcupine Tree when Stephen Wilson started working with Michael Arkenfeld. I started with Heritage. Damnation I also like, and then I've moved forward. I heard about this stuff. It didn't interest me, the vocal style. And when I tried to listen to this, I did get through it once. Never have to hear it again. It's just I can't listen to those vocals. Musically, there's some great stuff. I love their dynamic, and we talked about that when we talked about Damnation. I love the moody stuff. I love the heavy stuff, but I can't get through the vocals. So that was my number 4. My number 3 was Porcupine Tree, Stupid Dream. And I kind of agree with Luis that I don't think this aged as well. I started with Signify, so I think 96 was when I first heard about Porcupine Tree. I really like them. For me, their wheelhouse is In Absentia, Fear of a Blank Planet, and those are my favorites, and Deadwing. But
Eric, who's the drummer on those albums?
well, that is another point to make. It surprised me, I think, maybe listening to this because I probably hadn't listened to these in quite a while. It's like we talked about with Genesis and when Collins joined. There's no comparison between Maitland and Gavin Harrison. And granted, the styles are a little different. I mean, Porcupine Tree did get heavier, but it kind of surprised. To me, it's like listening. A good example might be Marillion, where Mosley made a world of difference after Mick Pointer, who I can't even listen to script because the drumming's so awful on that. My number 2 is Liquid Tension Experiment, and I get what everyone's saying. For me, the back end of this album falls off a little bit, but I think the first 5 are great. I love Acid Rain, like Luis said. Another Dimension is great. When the Water Breaks is very long, but there's some great stuff in there. But the back end does kind of fall off a little bit. And it surprised me that Dream Theater was my number 1. And I think having those guys in Liquid Tension Experiment and then going and listening to Scenes from a Memory, it's tighter. I mean, the songs are tighter, the playing is tighter. There's some great stuff on here. I loved Strange Deja Vu, Home. The ending of Fatal Tragedy is monstrous. I do think this as well. I don't get into the concept. You guys know that vocals, to me, the melody and the cadence work. I don't really care what he's singing about. I know this is a concept. The end of this kind of falls a little flat for me too. The last 2 songs I thought were a little, I would have liked a little more punch at the end of the record, but that surprised me. I did not expect Dream Theater to come in at number 1, but it's my number 1 as well.
To add to Anthony's point, though, if you ever hear, well, I guess you would have to look at it in the video, but when Gavin Harrison plays the songs from the old Porcupine Tree albums, they're elevated. It's exactly the Genesis analogy is perfect.
Yep, absolutely.
Really, it makes a huge difference. So, yeah.
All right, Dream Theater's off to an early lead. Ken.
Okay, no losers here. All excellent albums. Thankfully, George didn't pick a Kansas album.
Oh boy. We're gonna start drinking to that now.
Oh, I watched that episode and I read the comments. You enjoyed that a little bit too much, Golden.
I did enjoy it.
I know what you fucking did. Mazel tov.
Thank you. So my rankings, I'm kind of splitting hairs here because these really were 4 very good albums. Number 4 is Still Life. Is the thing that's nice about Still Life. There's a lot of nice dynamic contrast you get between the light and heavy, clean and coarse vocals. The clean vocals have a really nice kind of dreamlike quality to that blend well with the acoustic guitars. I'm thinking of like Face of Melinda. But the thing is, at the end of the day, Opeth is a metal band. So there's a progressive element to what they're doing, but they're really like a death metal band that pays some reverence to some 70s prog because Michael likes 70s prog, I mean, like he could talk about Camel all he wants, but I don't hear any Camel in this album.
I do.
You know. But again, it's a very, very good album. And of the four, it's the one I would reach for last. Number 3 for me is Stupid Dream. And I used to be a huge Porcupine Tree fan. I like that psychedelic, spacey Pink Floyd sound. They kind of peaked maybe with like Voyage 34. I love Sky Moves Sideways, Signify. Great albums that really resonated with me. With Stupid Dream, this album's on the cusp for me, and I hadn't listened to it in a long time, but I really enjoyed it. You could hear the Steven Wilson's taste changing. The music is moving more into a little more contemporary direction. He's really kind of developing his own sound. They're turning into a prog rock band. The opening tracks, Even Less and Piano Lessons, that had nothing to do with like that early spacey Floyd sound, but they're great songs. And overall, I thought the album compositionally was very consistent, and it was a very good listen. Number 2, Liquid Tension Experiment. It has great songs, but for my taste, it's front loaded. Acid Rain is the best track on the album. They open with it. It's a very long album. I think it could have benefited with more of an acoustic element to break it up and make the album a little more dynamic, particularly in the middle of the album. The acoustic parts don't really come into play until the last couple of tracks, Liquid Dreams and Hourglass. So if I had a choice, I'd probably sequence the album a little better, maybe cut it down a little bit. You know, when the water breaks, I mean, that it's very long, you know, and then it's followed by long tracks. So by the end of the album, I was exhausted, but it's a fun ride. You listen to these great musicians, you know, just letting it all hang out, and it's kind of cool. Is it better than the first album? I don't know. I think I would. Yeah, I think I would have cut it down a bit, and I probably would have edited it a little differently. Scenes from Memory. That was just the obvious one for me. I mean, easily my favorite Dream Theater album, and I think their best album. And I mentioned it, you know, in the comments the other day when we were chatting. I said Home is the best song they've ever written. I mean, that album just that song kills. I remember seeing them do it live and just saw them do it in Philly at the Electric Factory. And man, it was like the place just blew up. It was just unbelievable. And just everything about it, LaBrie's vocals, playing the instrumentals, it's a great record. I mean, it's one of the truly great prog metal albums. And of the 4 that we had to choose from, it was heads and shoulders the best, I thought.
Agreed.
Not to diminish the other 3, because Georgia picked good albums this time. But
This time.
well, you know, there was no Vinyl Confessions, you know. So
Wow. There we go.
You got it right, Ken. Good job tonight.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're in sync. And you know,
There's no way George is taking your shit, man. Just so you know, I'm just waiting for an awesome line.
I didn't pick the last square. Steven did, and I know that. So,
oh, did he? Did Steven pick the last ones?
yeah.
Steven and I went through that list. Yeah,
There you go. So you're already talking for nothing, Ken. Shut the fuck up.
This one is all George today. This one is all
George, take the compliment, George.
There you go.
Even if it's not earned, take the compliment.
Speaking of George, he's up.
All right. My number 4 is the Opeth. I went into it knowing I wasn't gonna like the vocals, but I was kind of surprised at how dull I found the music. All my buddies love this band, and they're always like, you know, it's a shame you can't get by the growly vocals, because if you could, this music's so good. So I'm really keying in on the music this time. I had never heard this record at all before, so I'm really keying in on the music. And I don't know, I didn't find anything remarkable about it. I can't remember a single riff. Just didn't strike me. To me, it's not even prog. It sounds more like a traditional metal band with just a different approach with the vocals and maybe artifacts of 70s prog here and there. But to me, it's a more straight metal thing. Didn't care for it. My number 3 is Porcupine Tree. This one I never heard before either. I've heard most of their stuff, but not this one. It's interesting mix. I hear a definite healthy dose of alt rock in here, smidges of dream pop, maybe even a little grunge, and a little prog. It's well done stuff, but something about this band just doesn't affect me. And I don't know if other people have bands like this. I hear what I think is what other people are hearing. It just doesn't get to me. So I found myself, that was an easy 3 for me. My number 2 is Liquid Tension. I'm probably going to echo what other people have said. It's front loaded. The first 5 tracks, smoke. The same ones Porter said, acid rain by accident when the water breaks. That's the cherries. The improvs, you're rock guys. You're not great improvisers. Leave it to the Fusion Cats. Those tunes are Midland tunes. If you knock those 3 off and wrote 3 other songs, or actually 2 other songs, because it's too long at 74 minutes, I think you'd be a lot better off. But as it is, it's a good record for what it is. Good instrumental prog. And number 1 is Dream Theater. What everybody said. I mean, it's the standard bearer of the genre, basically, at least for the time. This is one of LaBrie's better albums. He's good when he's not trying to sound tough or when he's not trying to go all aggressive. He's staying in his mid-range here. That's his strong suit. For me, the best song is Beyond This Life. I love that tune. Fatal Tragedy, Strange Deja Vu, those are my favorites. I love Home also, but there are a couple songs that are kind of I don't know, schmaltzy, like Spirit Carries On and some of the shorter pieces, but there's just too many really killer songs on here to get too wrapped up in those little things. So it was my easy number 1.
All right, Dream Theater with a commanding lead so far. Chad, you gonna break it?
We'll see. Like George, knowing what I was getting into for Opeth, I did enjoy it. I found that what did you call them? Coarse vocals, Ken?
Death Growl, man.
I listened to this album a few times. I did enjoy the music. I don't like the coarse vocals. I love the other vocals, the melodic vocals, whatever you want to call it. I find the coarse vocals distracting. Even when I'm trying to get past them and listen to the music, I find them distracting, and it's hard to really concentrate on those riffs and the music going on in the background. That said, like music on like The Moor and Moonlapse Vertigo, great tunes. Probably the 2 I like the best were Benighted and Face of Melinda. There aren't any coarse vocals. Like Ken said, there's good shades of dark and light on here with the acoustic and the metal moments. I would love to hear a version of this album with all non-coarse vocals. I just think it would be a game changer for me. I know a lot of people love it. It's like I said, it's a distraction. I can't understand it. It's not for me. But musically, I did enjoy it. My number 3, Porcupine Tree. I hadn't picked this album up in a while. I do like Stupid Dream a lot. It is long. It's a full hour. It is very consistent. Songs like Even Less, the bass lines in Pure Narcotic and Tinto Brass are awesome. It's sort of a pop prog album, is kind of where I would put it. But it's solid. I think it's probably even less pop prog than Lightbulb Sun. But it's not nearly as floaty and proggy as the earlier stuff, and clearly not nearly as heavy as where they would go. But still, it was a great listen. I hadn't listened to it in a long time. And I should have said, I did like all four of these albums. This was a really good set of four. My number two, Liquid Tension. You guys have said it a lot. Acid Rain's awesome. I love Another Dimension. The crunchy main riff in that is just killer. And as it evolves, as the song goes, it gets even crunchier. The first 5 songs I think are pretty solid. Even When the Water Breaks is good. Like you said, it's long. It's over 16 minutes. The back half of the album starts to get a little too experimental and much less structured. I think if they chopped off at least one of those songs and maybe put something a little more structured on the back half, it would have helped with the flow. But as far as listening, it's out of the 4, this is the one I have the most fun with. I will pull this out because I like the front half of the album so much. But it doesn't live up to what number 1 is, and that's Scenes from a Memory. It's great coming off, hearing those themes from part 1, from the Images and Words. The overture is great. Beyond This Life and Home are just balls to the wall, awesome prog metal. It's not my favorite Dream Theater album for a few reasons. One, I feel when I put it on, I have to listen to the whole thing, and it's a long freaking album. And I think once they get past Dance of Eternity, it's 22 minutes of sort of wrapping up the story, and it's sort of, there's slower tunes. There's not as much to latch on to at the end. The melodies are nice, but it's a long way to get to the end of the story. But it is a solid album. The fact that the storyline is cool and mysterious really carries it forward, in addition to how strong the strongest songs are on here. And that's why it's my number 1.
Cool. All righty. Dream Theater running away with this one. Anthony.
Well, I'm gonna break it up a little bit, I guess.
That's all right.
As that when we announced what albums we were doing, Opeth, Still Life was an album I had never listened to. I mean, I've been a pretty big Opeth fan since like I felt kind of hooked up with Wilson in the early 2000s, but this is one that I just never heard. But my ranking is going to go as number 4. I'm going to go with Liquid Tension Experiment at number 4. As everybody says, Acid Rain is phenomenal, and then it just kind of like goes down off a cliff for me. It gets kind of noodly. There's not a melody I hear. One thing I do hear, that Mun Young is never in the mix. Levin is in the mix. You can hear him playing his day. So he look, and of the 3 Liquid Tension Experiment albums, I think the third one's the best. I don't know what you guys think, but I think the third one had more melody to me, and I kind of gravitated towards that one. Number 3, I'm definitely going with Opeth, Still Life. Minus the menacing vocals, some of the vocal harmonies are just pure gorgeous, absolute gorgeous. And I can see where George says they're a metal band. We don't really hear much prog, but Ackerfeld, when he's singing those clean, beautiful, sublime vocals, he's got me right in. Number 2, I'm going with Dream Theater. I love the Dream Theater record. I really enjoy Dream Theater. As everybody says, this could be our favorite Dream Theater album. Beyond the Life, another Strange Deja Vu, Home, all killer tracks. Jordan Ruiz just slays on the keys. Petrucci, maybe his best guitar record. And number 1, I'm going with Steven and the Boys, Stupid Dream. George said it best. I think it's it's like a very dream pop album. Even Less is such a great haunting opener. Track 10, Smart Kid, love it, amazing. Piano Lessons, fantastic power pop. So that's my ranking.
What do you think of A Slave Called Shiver?
That's okay.
I like that one.
That's one of my favorites from that record. I didn't hear you mention that. That's why I asked you. Yeah.
Well, I every time I play A Smart Kid, I kept repeating it. I just love that song so much.
Anthony, what about the sax and Don't Hate Me?
That does not belong. Does not belong. And as I was telling Ken, like there's a trumpet part in one of the Steve Hillage records that does not belong.
Oh, good Lord. Here we go, man.
I kind of like the sax, actually.
Don Cherry was horrible.
Yeah, that guy doesn't know what to do with a horn.
When he said that, I felt my heart tighten up.
You.
That's the brontosaurus ribs there, Ken.
And I had forgotten
No,
that there was
that's
even sax in that song. I'm like, where the hell is this coming from?
As soon as the album was picked out, and so that's the first thing I thought about. That's why I text you guys.
Sax is your friend, Anthony. Come on. Accept it. Embrace it.
Oh
Jump
man,
to the
that's,
dark
Mel
side.
Collins is, for some reason, I'm not a fan of the sax, but Mel Collins, anytime I hear him, it's just tasty. It works. I don't know why.
that's the thing. Are you a fan of Islands, King Crimson's Islands?
Yes, I owe big time.
All right, love that album.
Yeah, but Fripp's guitar helps that too.
I
Jump
think
to
it's
the
an excellent
dark
album.
side.
All right, this is turning into an intervention.
Does
I will
Travis
say-
play? Does Travis play both the sax solo and the flute solo in that tune?
I
Nope,
think so.
no, he doesn't.
Because they're back to back, and I wondered why they let him solo twice in a row on different instruments. I thought it was weird.
Someone look that up. I will say I have to. My boys here are doing very good tonight. So far, we've got coarse and menacing. They know what I'm talking about. I'm sure. Yeah.
You're due.
Menacing, I stole that from you, Pete.
That
You
was a
used
good
that
one.
word
Menacing. I
before.
was like, I didn't expect.
That's like when you said that, like, oh, that's a perfect word for those vocals.
I was waiting
Menacing.
to see what everybody would come up with. It's very good so far. Very good. All right, Chris, over to you.
Okay. For me, my number 4 is Liquid Tension Experiment 2. As everybody else said, these are 4 great albums. I love every single one of these. It was a nice week. I was off this week listening to these, constantly. And thanks, George. They all kicked ass. But one guy has to come in last, and it's LTE. I prefer the first one. I think it rips a little harder in a few different spots. And like everybody said, it starts off with a bang, and then it just kind of sort of fizzles out. And I think all 4 of these are kind of victims of the, time expansion that CDs gave everybody, and they're going a little bit longer than they had to just to fill up the medium because they had the time. And you're like, you know what, if we got 70 minutes here, let's fill it up. And I kind of think that happened with this one. So that's my number 4. Number 3, I'm going with the Porcupine Tree. I had not heard this one either. I am coming from the opposite direction of some people, like In Absentia back. When I first started listening to them, they were, well, I thought like this is a heavy band. And then I kind of read more about them and then learned about, the whole story. Like, well, what if there was this band kind of like Pink Floyd that nobody ever heard of? And, and then I skipped the middle part and listened to their earlier stuff. So I never got into this one until now. And I think it's just incredibly smooth, professionally done. I mean, it's just like great songwriting, great songs. Everything on there is interesting. And I was on kind of even hearing like a little Radiohead kind of thing going on in certain parts. And, Steven's vocal delivery, he was making me think of like Peter Gabriel in Intruder, as he's sort of whispering some little parts there, that was cool. I enjoyed that, but that came in third.
Hey, Chris,
Number
before you
2.
go off the Porcupine Tree, yes, Theo Travis did play the flute and the sax on that song.
Yeah.
That being, don't hate me.
So number 3 for me was Opeth. And, I am not a person who has a problem with death growls. I enjoy menacing death growl vocals, coarse, that kind of shit. Not a problem for me. To me, it adds to the music. And honestly, I don't care that I can't understand them. I don't really care what the fucking words are. It's another sound. It's almost like an instrument to me. And this album, is another one I have not really been familiar with. I've been an Opeth fan for quite a while, and this one just never landed on my freaking CD player until now. I enjoy it. Lots of contrast, light and dark. I'm surprised that Blackwater Park got so much more attention than this for, them sort of delving away from the straight ahead, balls out, heavy stuff. But I suppose Steven Wilson's involvement in Blackwater Park got them the extra attention at that point. But great album, dig it. Number 3. No, I'm sorry, number 2, can't count. And number 1 is the Dream Theater album for me. Like everybody said, it's my favorite Dream Theater album. Little long, but just, they're just scorching in some spots. And I mean, the fourth tune, scene 4 there, they start their thing, and then the outro, the just like second movement is just so damn funky and fucking heavy and strong. And there's a couple songs that they just bang it out at the end. And one thing I noticed with Home, and this popped into my head, and I don't know if anybody else hears it, but to me, it sounds like a sped up version. Once they move into the second movement, it sounds like a sped up version of 46 and 2 by Tool, which was very like I couldn't get that out of my head once I heard that. But that's cool. I like that song too. So
That's
Dream
right.
Theater, number one.
I think Mike Portnoy even said that he walked into the studio with a bunch of CDs for inspiration. That was one of them.
It came through.
That's right.
Cool. All right. Did you enjoy your time in the sun, my friend?
It was great. It's too damn cold here. I hate it. I gotta move away.
It has been cold the last. It was like 60 degrees a week and a half ago. Now it's been brutal
Yeah,
cold.
it's supposed to warm up this week, I guess.
Yeah, relatively speaking, right? 45.
Yeah.
Chuck, over to you.
All right. Good evening, gentlemen. As mentioned by everyone else here, and so all 4 albums, I loved all 4 albums. I had no problems with any of them, except for the fact that they all were a bit front loaded, or at least a little bit over long. But my number 4, just like everybody else, and so LTE 2 is my number 4. As I said, I love these albums, but I thought that LTE 2 could have been LTE 3. Because I think that's their best album myself as well. I just thought that the album was just a little bit too front loaded, and then as it went on, and so like once you started getting towards the latter half of it, and so it just started to become a little bit too experimental, even for my taste. It just seemed a little bit too nudely or overlong, and so that's why I put that album, despite the fact that I do like it. My number 3, I hate to butcher shit on Mr. Progman over there, and so, but I was really never much of a Porcupine Tree fan, and so, but I've been getting a lot into their stuff lately, and Stupid Dream, it's an excellent album, much of that, but I also feel that that album is a little bit too long as well. It's my number 3. And unlike everybody else over here, and so I just thought that Still Life was just a perfect combination of heavy and soft. So that's my number 2. And number 1 definitely is always going to be Dream Theater. It's the only time that I saw them live, and I thought that that they played this entire album excellently. I just thought that it was the perfect album, and so could have probably just edited down probably just a few minutes, and so to keep it from being over long, and so. But I just thought that the band was on fire on this album, and that's my number 1, Dream Theater, Scenes from a Memory. Number 2, Still Life. 3, Stupid Dream, and number 4, LTE 2.
Did you see that show at the Roseland?
Yes, I did. I was there.
So you were there for that infamous taping in
Yes,
the
yes, I was.
the album with the cover that had to be pulled and all that, right?
What's so sad about that, I hate to mention this, and so is that I was looking forward to the album. I was actually going to go to JNR Music World to go pick up the live album on 9/11.
Yeah.
I was actually going to tell my boss I was actually going to leave early, and so that I could go down there and pick it up, only to find out that had happened. And that's what I'm always going to have memories of, of that album, that live album.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
All right. For me, my top 2 were pretty much a given. It was the number 3 and number 4, which I kind of went back and forth on. And I ultimately decided for my number 4, and I hadn't listened to this album in quite a while. And in revisiting it, so I don't remember who said it, but someone mentioned it hasn't aged all that well. I'm going to have Stupid Dream by Porcupine Tree as my number 4. I do like it.
Lewis.
It was Lewis. Okay. I think what I discovered, because I went and I listened to a bunch of their other albums over the last week, and I think that where I'm at now in like 2024 with this band, I kind of prefer their earlier, more space rocky version. and their latter, heavier version than I do this middle period. Although I think this is really good stuff. There's great melodies on here. The songs are kind of catchy, but maybe for me, it's a little too kind of alt rock popish, I guess, for where my head's at these days. But even less piano lessons are great. There's some really good stuff on here. I also find it's a little long, and towards the back end, it starts to drag a little bit and it loses my attention, but it's masterfully produced and well played. I love his vocals on it. I think it's a really fine album. It's just not where I go to these days when I want to listen to Porcupine Tree. So that's my number 4. My number 3 is Liquid Tension Experiment 2, basically for all the reasons everybody said. I mean, when you got Portnoy, Levin, Petrucci, and Rudas on an album, you're going to have fireworks. There's a lot of it on here. But 74 minutes is a long slog to go through with this relentless, shredding and improv. It starts off great. I mean, Acid Rain is terrific. One of the best songs they ever did. But, Chewbacca, Liquid Dreams, When the Water Breaks, back to back to back. Whew. It's a little relentless. It's all great playing, but to sit through this all in one shot can be a lot, even though, you're like wowed every step of the way. But I like this band a little bit more when their compositions are a little tighter. I don't mind improv at all. I used to do a lot of improv style stuff, but after a while, it kind of breaks on me a little bit. But but it's still a really good album. That's my number 3. My number 2 is an album I've always loved by this band, but I hadn't heard it in a while, and it was great to revisit it. And someone else mentioned how Blackwater Park gets all the attention from this period, but I would say Still Life is almost as good as Blackwater Park. And I think it's a masterful production. I love the light and shade of it. I again don't have any trouble with extreme metal vocals. I honestly think that Michael's death metal growls are some of the best ever in the business. I can kind of understand what he's saying a little bit. Like Chris said, it becomes like another instrument to me. And I love, when you hear those clean vocals, it's like you're like, oh, there's the kind of payoff, right? So you go through the savagery of his other vocal style, and then he comes in and he just totally knocks your socks off with this gorgeous clean vocal passage. Really great. The More is a fantastic song on here. Face of Melinda is so good. Serenity, Pain, and Death is just like George was saying, straightforward extreme metal song. Love it though. I mean, I don't think this is a bad song. I really love it. This would have been my easy number 1 if it wasn't for this. And this has been my favorite Dream Theater album since the day it was released. I saw them at Roseland Ballroom in New York City on the first of the 2 shows they played on this tour. It was one of the great Dream Theater shows, and I've seen them almost 30 times. And I remember the Dixie Dregs opened up, and it was just such a ridiculous night of music. And I remember my buddies and I were drunk as shit, and we had a blast. It was just so much fun. And I've seen them perform this album numerous times over the years. In fact, I saw them do this whole album like 5-6 years ago, again in New Jersey. And it's so good. One of my favorite vocal performances on a Dream Theater album from James Labrie. Like George said, he's right in his wheelhouse on this album. There's just incredible musicality on this record. This is the first album with Rudess, and he fits right in like a glove. I was upset when Derek left the band, but man, once I heard this, I was kind of like, all right, they don't lose anything here. I kind of some of the sounds that he does on this album, I wish he would kind of get back to a little bit, but that's a me thing. I think some of Petrucci's best playing ever is on this album. There's some amazing arrangements on here. There's some catchy vocal melodies. The whole thing is so dramatic and, bombastic, and yeah, it's long, but I don't really care. Just Beyond This Life is amazing. The overtures kick ass. Fatal Tragedy is killer. Home is the best thing they ever did. The Dance of Eternity is just mind blowing. It doesn't get much better than this. And, I want to throw, obviously Dream Theater is the unanimous winner here pretty much, but kind of like when our last episode, we had the one that everybody thought was going to run away with it, and that was Genesis, and it did. So some people in the comments were like, well, maybe you should have made this a little bit more even across the board. But you never know if everybody's going to gravitate towards an album like this or not. So while we were kind of going through this and I was seeing how everybody was voting, I was thinking about another album that came out also in 1999, from a pretty notable band operating in this space, and that's Spock's Beard Day for Night. And I'm just curious, real quick, for those on the panel who know that album, if we had replaced Dream Theater with Spock's Beard, how would that have changed your ranking real quick? For those who know the album, if you don't know the album, don't worry about it. Eric, do you know the Spock's Beard album at all?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. How would that change your ranking, do you think?
That's not one of my favorites from theirs. I like Beware of Darkness, the earlier the light. It still might be 2, I think. I don't know that it would be a number 1. But it would have changed my ranking for sure.
Okay. Anybody else know that album well that would want to
It would have been my number 2.
Number 2, okay. Chad?
Probably 3 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah, like Eric said, I think it's very front loaded. It's got a couple good songs up front, and then honestly, I couldn't tell you much else that's on it anymore. But I think everything else on here is pretty much stronger than that as a whole.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, if there was no Dream Theater, Opeth would have been number 1 for me. I do like this Spock's Beard album. I just don't know where it would kind of sit with these other ones, because yeah, it's a long album. It is front loaded. I do like the Healing Colors of Sound, which is the big epic at the end of it, but that's like 22 minutes long, and even that like drags on a little bit. But I was just curious what everybody thought, because I'm sure
For me, that was the first time I saw them live for that tour. They played Orion and it was just such an impressive live band, you know, at that time. So the album itself, I mean, they had that really awesome, like Yes meets Beatles meets Gentle Giant kind of vibe that I had never heard before. So if that had been on the list and not Dream Theater, I think that there would have been my number 2. And Opeth would have been up to 1.
That same.
Because the Opeth is just such a perfect yin yang of everything that these guys, everything that was stewing in Mike Leckerfield's brain. You know, I just love that record. So this one, yeah, that would have been my number 2.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So
other
George,
spots
I mean,
gone higher for me, but not that one.
Yeah, that is not their best record by a lot, but given this block, because I mean, The Stupid Dream is a great record, but there is no need for over an hour long, you know, dream pop album with some prog flavor. It really does overstay its welcome. That's the problem. All the songs are good, but you know, some are better than others, and if they had really trimmed it, then it would be a different conversation, I think. Because they could have just killed you with that record. And then, you know, it's a different story. But given that it's so overlong, like others have mentioned, I never understood why, there's 70 minutes, let's fill it up. Like, dude, some of the best records ever made were under 40 minutes. What are you doing?
Yeah.
That's Van Halen.
Yeah. So what is this? It's obvious that there's going to be a lot of filler. And the Liquid Tension Experiment is the best example. I mean, you, Pete, mentioned compositions. There are some compositions at the beginning of the record, and then there's just, all right, what the fuck? Let's go. And like George said, these are not jazz guys who can experiment and improvise and really, you know, that's not what they do. So that's what we hear.
And they'll all be the first to tell you that, generally speaking, when they do a Liquid Tension album, they book like what, 5 days together, and they have to put together material, and boom, that's it. That's all they got.
So
I felt like the first album had a lot more composed music on it than this one.
I'll say this, a question for the panel. Going back to Scenes from Memory, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Explorer Club, but Explorer Club 2 has Petrucci on it, and you can hear a lot of the seeds of what eventually went into Scenes and also this album. Like, go back and listen to it, and you will hear a lot of that stuff, a lot of the little melodies in the solos, a little bit of the riffs. They're not quite the same, but they're all there. Because he just walked in and like, all right, jam. Dude's jamming. He probably said, hey, wait a minute, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I gotta go. I haven't heard that in years. I gotta go.
Was that a Magna Carta?
A Magna Carta, yes. It was Trent Gardner, I think, the guy from Magellan,
Dylan.
who was the main guy there. He was putting together a super group or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, those are fine records. I'm not putting them down, but I'm just saying it's interesting for people who love, as much as I loved Dream Theater scenes, to hear that record and hear a lot of those early ideas are there from Petrucci. Obviously, the other guys are not there, you don't hear them, but the Petrucci stuff is there.
Yep. So there you have it, everybody. Dream Theater walks away with this one, commanding winner. Thanks for everybody for playing along. You know how it works down in the comments below. Rank them as you like them. Porcupine Tree, Dream Theater, Liquid Tension Experiment, and Opeth Still Life. And Lewis mentioned them before. A little preview for our next show, and this is a viewer request. We are going to do a Gentle Giant show 2 weeks from today. We have the ridiculous task of all of us picking our top 3 Gentle Giant albums. So for a band who many people say have 5 or 6 classic albums in a row, we have to just pick 3 as our favorite. We'll see kind of what everybody comes up with on that. So that's coming up 2 weeks from today. It's all Gentle Giant, and we've also got the remix of The Missing Piece coming up real soon as well. So it's kind of
That just got bumped.
It got bumped, yeah, back to
March 29th, I think it is.
Gotcha. All right. Well, so you'll hear us talk about Gentle Giant catalog, and then a few weeks later you'll get the new reissue of The Missing Piece. So that's coming up in 2 weeks. Stay tuned and visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together. All the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down there below cans somewhere in the video description, we've got the links to our Ko-Fi page, our merch page, and our Cameo page. I almost forgot everything I was supposed to say there. Shame on you, Pete. You say it every day, multiple times a day. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. And we'll see you soon here on In the Prog Seat. For Chuck Alvarez, Chris Canzanieri, Anthony Ferraro, Chad Hutchinson, George Lemie, Ken Golden, Eric Porter, and the returning rock star, Mr. Lewis Nasser. We'll see you soon here on In the Prog Seat. I'm Pete Pardo. Have a good one, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. The winner.
The winner.